I don't know. I feel like we've gone too far with the overshare. I don't think that's appropriate, or don't share past transgressions. Like, are you kidding me? Like, share the past transgression, because that also shares the past redemption that we've had in our life. And it's that the power of redemption that will keep people coming back and find healing.
Hello and welcome to the One Heart podcast, sponsored by One Heart, One Light. One Heart, One Light is an authentic, diverse community of men and women who have a background with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We choose to love and be loved unapologetically. At One Heart, One Light, we teach unique tools to apply Christ's atonement, and we are a bridge to becoming one with self, others, and God. As we like to say, One Heart, One Light exists to empower individuals to become one by reminding them of their wholeness. Come and be one with us. Today our guest is Kurt Francom. Kurt is the Executive Director of Leading Saints, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping Latter-day Saints be better prepared to lead. Kurt grew up in West Valley City, Utah, and served a mission in Sacramento, California. He and his wife have 3 children and live in Stansbury Park, Utah. Kurt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be able to talk to you. Obviously, you've been podcasting a lot longer than I have. You've done a number of, and certainly I haven't listened to all of your interviews.
Yeah, only my mom has, so you're all right.
Well, at least you're loved by mom. That's
right. That's right. I'm a mama's boy.
that's awesome. But I have been, I guess, inspired by the direction you're going, the people you're talking to, the topics you're bringing up, and as we build One Heart, One Light, and are trying to get our message out there, I really felt like a lot of the topics you're hitting are right in line. And so wanted to, talk to you a little bit more, get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Let's jump in.
Awesome. So my first question, how did you get started on this journey of, your lead executive director of Leading Saints? What led you there and into podcasting and getting the messages out that you're sending out?
Yeah. Well, when I was a 5-year-old, I definitely wasn't saying I want to be a podcaster when I grew up, in 1986 or whatever it was. But it was a definitely interesting journey. I went to college. BYU rejected me 3 times. My heart was broken. So I swallowed my pride and went to the University of Utah. I graduated in business marketing and started right out of college at Young Living, which is one of the many MLM companies here in Utah. And I traveled North America and put on presentations about essential oils with all their distributors. I did that for about 3 years. And then I just realized quickly that I was not made for a cubicle or even a travel job like that, where I was, going different places and talking about products I really wasn't that passionate about. And I had a buddy who reached out and was starting a web development company. And so I went on, partnered with him, and we ran a web development company together for 5 years. Cool. And then during that time, Leading Saints was just sort of a passion project of mine. It was a side, sort of a hobby blog that I was just enjoyed spending my free time with and blogging and, exploring different content. And I had been an elders quorum president in the ward where I met my wife in the YSA ward. And, this is my first leadership role. Sure. And I thought, they finally got the guy who's going to actually try. This is great. Here I go. And, I'm going to put all my effort into it. And I did. I mean, I burned the candle at both ends and spent hours on the, home teaching routes, figuring if I just get the combination of companionships right and the right routes right, then it'll magically get done. And, did the guilt trip lesson, just made all these typical mistakes that young leaders make. And I left that, I got engaged to my wife. We moved out of the ward, and I left that calling just sort of discouraged. I thought, man, what was the point of that? I tried really hard, but the needle didn't even move. I think it got worse with me at the helm, and I was really discouraged by it, but hey, it was over. I moved on. We then moved into a ward a year or so later with my wife and served in the bishopric for a few years. And then that bishop got released and I was called as the high priest group leader. And I thought, man, here I go again. I'm the quote unquote leader of this group. And what am I going to even try? Like nothing works. Let's just show up on Sunday, mail it in and we'll go home to our Sunday naps or whatever, But I I could walk into bookstores and there'd be bookshelves full of life leadership, business leadership, all this research about leadership, but nobody was talking about the best practices of leadership in the context of our Latter-day Saint leadership tradition.
Sure.
How to run a meeting, how to help people overcome pornography, how to create a brotherhood, how to connect with men, how to, lead women or whatever it is. And so I thought maybe I'll create a platform to unite these worlds. And, I'm no leadership expert, but maybe I can find the expert to bring on and talk to them or write a blog. And it started out as a blog for a few years. And then 2014, the podcast started, and that's sort of when it got some good traction, and just kept interviewing interesting people and everyday leaders, and, learning about what the other guy did. And from that, I had various other leadership experiences and callings that, that sort of I gained new perspective and understanding of some of the daunting tasks that leaders face in church. And so I wanted to go out and find better answers, better approaches, better understanding of what's happening, so that we can be better prepared to lead when we're asked to lead. As we don't fill out applications for these roles, and and they don't pay, awesome. And sure, they pay in blessings, I guess you could say, but there's these are daunting roles. So just from then 2016, we became a nonprofit organization, and then just been growing since then. And now I think we just passed 9 million downloads on the podcast, and it just keeps, 500,000 downloads a month. It's just, I thought we'd plateau long before this, but I'm just so encouraged by, the desire. There's such an interest out there of individuals who just want to know, what's a different way of looking at this, or, how can we approach Elders Quorum better, Relief Society, or what is sacrament meeting all about? And, what's tradition, what's doctrine, what's the handbook say? And then how can we create an experience that people are just overly engaged to come to and experience every week, that they can't wait for it to come back the next week? And I think there are those types of answers. So then, in 2016 is when this became a full-time job. I left that web development company, and leading Saints was full-time, and it's been going gangbusters ever since.
That's awesome. And yeah, I can totally agree with the idea that, or just the thought that, we get called in, and I've done much the same, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to knock the ball out of the park. And I get knocked out of the park thinking, what the heck happened? Why did none of that work? And certainly there are some best practices out there. We read them out about them in the scriptures, and it's like, okay, I'm still missing something. So I think it's great. And I'm curious, what would you say is kind of the single greatest thing you've learned in the process of trying to build leadership and share best practices and creating meaningful conversations?
Yeah. I think it just comes back to learning how to connect from one-to-one with, or connect with an individual as a leader. I think back to my time, I was the high priest group leader, and there's this, he was actually on my home teaching route. His name was Rob. He just passed away a couple of years ago. And I really connected with him, went to his home, and he was just like, we became friends. Like just that sitting down, not to get the, part of it, sure, was part, get the home teaching done for the month, whatever. Sure. But I got to know him, and he wasn't that active each week in coming to the church. And then when it came time where I became the bishop of that ward, he was just like my super fan. Like that's my bishop, like that's my friend, and we just carried on that relationship even long past since I left that area. And that connection of really, when somebody can feel like my leader knows me, and they've taken the time to sit with me, to hear the struggles I have in life, not because they have the answers or whatnot. And so that's actually a big controversial. I'm full of all sorts of controversy, Matt. So you'll say things that get you a lot of hate mail or get me more emails, whatever. But sure. But I say it a little bit to be provocative, and I want people to sit with it and think about it. But for example, now we're in the ministering world, and I had the opportunity when they, combined the Elders Quorum and the High Priest group. I was called as the Elders Quorum president in the ward I was in at that time, and I did nothing else. Like I walked into that role and I said, this is what I'm going to connect with every single one of these men, and not just like this superficial, hey, how you doing? How's your job? Like, I'm really going to get to know these men. And so I told my presidency, I said, I'm going to do nothing else but do the ministering interviews.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else I'm going to do. And, I gave one counselor, like, you're in charge of Sunday meetings, just make that happen. The other counselor, you're in charge of making sure that, all the administration of the ministry, make sure people have, everybody's assigned, they have companions. And it is my deep conviction when anybody comes to me, and I get a lot of these emails or a lot of these interactions where they're just so frustrated with ministering. Like, why won't my people do this? And, I give them the assignment, and I do all the things, but then they just don't minister. And it's so easy. I mean, how hard can it be, right? Sure. I just feel this frustration from leaders. And I say, listen, this is what you do. Do nothing else but ministering interviews. Oh, well, I do that. We break it up between me and my counselor. Like, no. You got to hear me right here. You, as the president of this organization, do nothing else. And I mean nothing else but ministering interviews. And I did that. And what happened is, I think there were, I don't know, I'd say 60 or so elders in quorum at that time. And
sure.
And by the handbook, you only have to do ministering interviews, I think once every 3 months or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get to about 6 weeks and I would have them all, I did my duty as the elders quorum president for that quarter. So I just start right on over. So I was meeting with every elder for about once every 6 weeks. And the connection that's built there. And I did the same thing as the high priest group leader, when I was exploring this world of leadership, and just to have, men that were twice my age come to me just with heartbreak and share how they're not connecting with their adult kids. Or I had one gentleman just say, I just struggle with tithing, some of these things that don't come out in these superficial interactions. And so going back to the question started this rant here, if there's anything a leader can do is master the skill of connecting with those that you lead on such a personal basis. And if there's too many people, well, maybe you need to look at that of maybe your ward needs to be split, or your elders quorum needs to be split, or whatever it is. But learning to connect person to person, soul to soul, that clears up so much of the little nuances of leadership that pester us.
So tell me about that, because honestly, the next question is, what have you learned about vulnerability? But when I hear you say master connection, you're obviously going to questions that are, like you said, beyond where do you work and what do you do and what kind of hot rods do you like to race? And I mean, it's just, that's kind of the transactional, superficial. What do you do to truly connect?
Yeah.
To get somebody to open up and say, gosh, I'm struggling with my kids or my wife or my, I'm have this problem or that.
Yeah, I think the basis of that one, going back to just the cadence of a, ministering interview, one-to-one interview, it's just going to take a few rounds, right? Maybe it's going to feel a little awkward, superficial about, 3 or 4 times, okay, those first 3 or 4 interviews. And then you start, that there's this trust that builds naturally. Like, wow, this guy is coming to my home 4 times in a row, and he's really asking some questions about me and digging in. And it may start with, I remember being a priest quorum advisor, and I looked over at one of my priests sitting next to me, and he was scrolling through the Dallas Cowboys football scores.
Sure.
Now I could have said, hey, listen, buddy, you should put that phone away. We're in priest quorum here. But instead I said, hey, you Cowboys guy? Like, what do you think? How they looking this year? Right. And we started it can be very superficial, talk about your sports team, but he was like, oh, this guy is actually trying to understand me and my likes and whatnot, whether he's thinking that consciously or not. And then it goes from there. But generally speaking, like, if I think back, if I was to be like an elders quorum president again, I would focus heavily on story. And this is sort of maybe where I default, if you're a hammer, you see every problem as a nail. I produce a podcast for a living. I've done 600-700 interviews. And so it's sort of my thing. Right. But sure, there's something about sitting down with somebody and just saying, like, tell me your story. And so starting in elders quorum saying, hey, Brother Jones over there. Yeah. He's got the Elder Ballard talk. We're going to get to that. It's great. He's got some quotes that are fire. It's going to be awesome. But I just want to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe. I got, brother Smith here, and can I just like pepper you some questions and just ask you? And what I see a lot that sometimes we do the get to know you thing where, all right, Steve, go up front. Like, what's your favorite movie, man? Like, do you golf or not? Right. And that's fun. But to sit down with somebody and say, like, tell me about your faith development. Like, as a teenager, was it like mission or bust, or like, did you serve a mission? Like, no, I didn't serve a mission. Wow, tell me about that. Like, was there pressure there to serve a mission? How did you get through that? So why are you showing up here today if you haven't served a mission? Like, and then people start to think like, you give people an opportunity to tell their story. I really believe like we are built to tell story. Like, we want to share those parts of us, but we just don't have the safety to do it. And I was in a workshop a few weeks ago with it was actually for therapists, but I'm a geek when it comes to these things. So I went to this workshop, and the guy said, there's no such thing as resistance, only unsafety. And so if you're having a hard time getting people to make comments or to tell their story or to get vulnerable in whether it's an elders quorum, a sacrament meeting, or a relief society, it's not because they're trying to be resistant. Something you're doing, whether it's your fault or not, or something about the atmosphere is creating unsafety. And once that's cleared up, everybody will step forward, right? And so to get in this cadence of like sharing story in a quorum meeting, for example, and just like saying, yeah, I know we got to get to the lesson. We'll get there. And one of the greatest advice a great mentor told me long ago is never let an elders quorum meeting be just another Sunday school class. Bless you, Sunday school. You have your place, your role, and I'm not disparaging that organization, but oftentimes it's easy to get now. All right, we're here. Any announcements? Okay, the Joneses are moving on Wednesday. We'll be there. Okay, and all right, Brother Smith, let's do the lesson, right? Like pushing through that cadence and saying, actually, we're going to take some time. We're going to create some space here to hear this brother's story. And it may not be, maybe it's not crazy, but suddenly they'll say something of like, well, yeah, I was adopted and my parents moved out. Wait, you said you were adopted? Like, man, that probably created some dynamics in your life. What was that about? How did that impact your faith? Right. You'll see these, like, they'll give these glimpses of a wormhole in their life that really has some treasure buried there. And as you get people talking and telling those stories, then when you get to President Ballard's talk and, there's some quotes, people are like, man, hey, there's Brother Spenlove. I've heard his story. There's Brother Christians. Man, I know his story. Let's get real here, brothers. Like, I know you guys are my brothers because I've heard your story. And it all starts with that leader taking the time to create the space to hear each other's story. And that's where it begins.
Absolutely. Do you find that you have to lead with some vulnerability yourself and kind of tell your story to open up others?
Yeah, this is so powerful. And I've, for some reason, I have this group of therapist friends, and I'm not a therapist. And I have this group of addict friends, and I'm not a recovering addict or anything. But as I've spent more and more time with recovering addicts, I've just been so amazed at that vulnerability when they get to this place of, I don't care who knows my story or what they think of me when they hear my story. Yeah. And I remember being that bishop where somebody's like, hey, Bishop, let's get this handled. I've done some things, but let's, keep this bond between you and me. And I don't want anybody to know about this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not here to push you one way, but I also know this good person has a long road to go before they're really in that recovery where you just surrender it all and think, I don't care who knows. And so to be in that frame of mind of just, and we sort of have these weird dynamics and cultures of like, we use these terms like the overshare, or like, I don't think that's appropriate for you to share as the elders quorum president or as the bishop. And well, why not? Like because then we create these perceptions that like, actually the bishop has like followed these rules and he's figured it out more than I have. And that's why he's the bishop. Right. Yeah. Which is not true. And unfortunately it is true to some extent where, unfortunately, there are some things that people can do that can almost disqualify them unofficially from these roles. And it breaks my heart because I have these addict friends, some who've actually lost their membership in the church. And I look at them like, you would be the most phenomenal bishop I could ever experience. Right. And so, anyways, it's just like stepping forward. And again, it's in this, you set this system of like creating space to hear people's stories. And then the safety fills the room to a point of like, I want to share my story. Right. And I did this once with, I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. All 3 of my brothers, they were all 3 of the boys, including myself, all 3 of the boys served as bishop at the same time. Wow. And now those 2 other brothers, they're actually both serving as a stake president at the same time. Wow. Now, imagine being a 14 to 15-year-old in this family where you think, my dad's a stake president, my uncle's a stake president, my uncle's been a bishop. Like you begin, I worry that you begin to create these perception of like, if you haven't been a bishop or if you don't become a bishop, like there's something wrong with you. Right. And so we do this. A lot of families do. We get together at my parents' house and have dinner on Sundays. And then once a month we have our family home evening. Someone prepares a lesson and whatnot. So I prepared this lesson once and I just took this time to tell the story about when I was 16 years old and I had to set an appointment with the bishop several times and go in there and confess some things that I had done and, struggles I have had. And you could almost feel the shift in energy. We're like, wait a minute.
You could.
Uncle Kurt, wait a minute. Like he struggled with what I struggle with. Like it was just so impactful. So the more you can do that. And again, it's not like, I don't know. I feel like we've gone too far with this, the overshare. Or I don't think that's appropriate, or don't share past transgressions. Like, are you kidding me? Like share the past transgression because that also shares the past redemption that we've had in our life. And it's that the power of redemption that will keep people coming back and find healing in these groups that we're part of.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I have seen at times somebody who, quote, overshares it coming from a place of defensive neediness and kind of proving, oh, you reject me because I it's almost like this, self-fulfilling prophecy. However, some of the most powerful people I've seen, to your point, are the recovering addicts who are like, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't care anything about what you guys, because I'm me and I'm here and I'm good with me. And that to me is so powerful. Once we can get to that point of, I love me and it doesn't matter what you guys think about me because I'm me.
I think one of the greatest examples Christ set for us is after his resurrection, he shared his scars.
Sure.
And, there's all sorts of theories and doctrinal perspectives about why Christ retained his scars after the resurrection and whatnot. But, the sinless being, this resurrected being, I think needed to show us that it is important for him to share his scars. So that it's important for us to share our own scars.
I love that. And I hadn't thought of it in that exact context, but it's Ether 12:27 comes to mind all the time, that if you want to come unto me, you have to see your weakness. And it's only in seeing your weakness that it can even become strong. Mm-hmm. And I know for myself, for the first 40 plus years of my life, I was trying to become perfect without having to show any scars, without having to really see the dirt. And the last few years, as I've looked deeper and been humbled by what I've seen, and I think it's really opened me up to be less judgmental and a lot more loving of those who struggle. Because I can see that, if I grew up in your house, I would have done the same thing. I would have followed the exact same path that you did.
Right. So. Yeah. And we're just, there is a tradition, an effort of this sort of kind of earning it. Like we've sort of had this weird relationship with grace. I call it, we put butts on our grace. Like, it's true that we're saved by grace, but no, let's get rid of the but. Like we are actually saved by grace. And I'm a deeply broken individual, even though I haven't struggled with pornography my whole life or had an alcohol, issue or whatever. Like I'm still a deeply broken person. If I can't figure out why I need Christ today, like what does it matter why I need him in eternity then? Like we have to figure out why we're broken today and share that and reach healing. Because if we think we don't need healing, man, I can't imagine, being in the line to, as we learn in 3rd Nephi, being in that line when Christ is beginning to heal people, and you get up to the front of the line and Christ is like, how can I heal you? And I say, oh no, I'm good. Like, you focus on the handicapped people. I just want to meet you, man. Like, thank you. You're awesome.
Autograph.
But like, if you can't articulate to the Savior how you're broken, like, what's the point of you having a Savior,
Sure.
and you can't earn it, or you can't do everything, heal yourself until you get to the Savior and say, guess what, buddy? Like, you don't have to worry about me. I fixed me. Like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. And yeah, we're all broken. And in fact, a lot of times I've lamented, sometimes out loud, sometimes silently, that in our, addiction recovery, that it's kind of, it's like on a Thursday night, nobody's at the church and no one knows your name. And I'm kind of like, we need to bring this right into elders quorum, because, what we call an addiction is really just natural man. And I could easily say, you know what, my name's Matt. I'm a natural man and I struggle with X, Y, Z. And I think we get a little too hung up at times on, well, this is going to keep you out of the temple and this is not. Therefore, that there's some shame associated with that. And, you're okay because you're not addicted like that.
Right. Yeah. And it's so interesting you bring that up. I've been in this ward I'm currently in for just over a year. And I don't know, about 9 months ago, I thought, I would love to know what's going on in my stake related to the addiction recovery program. And so, you go online, you can look it up. And I found the meeting time. It's actually Friday nights at 7. Like, I don't know.
Sounds like
that's not the ideal time in my opinion, but again, I'm not whatever. And so I set a reminder on my phone every Friday, like during the day, it'll say, hey, that addiction recovery program is tonight. And it's so interesting to see the process happening. So, I mean, I'm trying to be vulnerable. I don't have an active addiction of any type that I would necessarily, quote unquote, need that meeting for what a lot of us think it's for. But I thought, I'm going to go. And I feel like, the more I can be aware of it in my area, the more maybe I can help people or, offer brotherhood to others and whatnot. And every week I've never made it. Like, it's been 9 months and it's just like, okay, but what if I walk in there? Like, who am I going to meet? What are they going to think of me? Like, and I don't mind necessarily what they think of me, but anyway, it's Friday night. You know what? I'm going to be home with the family or got date night or whatever. There's so many reasons not to, but it's interesting to see that. I challenge everybody listening to try that. Just look up when your addiction recovery meeting is in your area, set a reminder on your phone and see if you can, and just go once, see if you can go once, even if you have an active addiction or not. And I think that says a lot of, and I don't know, it's interesting experience because you learn a lot about yourself, just going through that.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. In fact, I can't remember who I was talking to, one of the directors over the program. And I it was a year or two ago, and I said, hey, I want to go. She's like, no, you can't go. You're the bishop. You can't go to that. And I was like, what? Well, you can dial into somebody else's, right? Dial into some other state, so it has to be anonymous. But to your point, I think there's value. And I'm not saying I know how to do it, but there's immense value in just being real, being vulnerable, being open. And once we see our stuff, then it's like, how can we judge? How can I judge? I can't.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. So, and I think we're kind of getting to this even as we talk, but what does it mean to you to bear one another's burdens in the gospel context? Too often I think it's, we're going to move the furniture or move a piano for so-and-so, but that's not the way I see it. Just curious what your thoughts are on that. Yeah,
this is, we always want to give the hand up, right? And we want to be on higher ground so that we can help the downtrodden person. When it's when the neighbor gets cancer that, man, you just can't wait to take the casserole over. You can't get engaged. You can't wait to get engaged in service. But it's when you get cancer, when you think, you know what, I don't want to be a project. I don't want to put an extra burden on people. So I'll just keep this to myself and suffer through it. And obviously that's a dramatic example maybe of a health condition like cancer, but it's easy to give the hand up, and it's another thing to just offer, like, just to be present with them. And sure. I've been trying this lately, sort of a exercise of, you see on social media, or maybe someone mentions at church, or, that a family's just, maybe they've had a really sick child in the hospital or whatnot. And we say, hey man, I'm praying for you. I will keep you in my prayers. And that's fine. Not that that's a bad thing to say. And I still say it to some degree, I guess, but there's this feeling of like, I'm going to do something to get this to go away. And we almost use it as on a level of superstition. Like if I just pray enough for you, then we'll convince God together,
right,
to get rid of this. But instead of saying that, I've been trying to force myself to say, I just had a good friend, had a daughter get in a serious car accident, broke her pelvis. And I mean, it was a close call, newlywed, beautiful girl. And I just left him a message. I gave him a call and I left him a message. I said, hey, of course I'm going to be praying for you, but I just hope that this experience takes you to the cross of Jesus. Like, I just hope in some way that you find Jesus in a new way in this, and that he offers healing in a way that you could have never expected. Right. Like and it sort of brings this posture of, I just want to sit with you in this. I don't want to fix it. I mean, I'd love to fix that, but I realize I can't just wave a magic wand and fix it. But I want you to know, like, you just have this, you have people sitting with you in it. Right. And so bearing one another's burdens is, you sit with them. If someone's struggling with a doubt, like, well, let me give you 4 articles and 5 scriptures that this will make it go away. Like, man, like, I can see that, like, if I was in your shoes, I would imagine that I would be a mess. Like, there's nothing wrong with what you're experiencing or going through. I just want to be with you in it. What have you thought about? Like, tell me about this experience. What have you gone through? Right now we're shifting into this. Tell me your story.
I love that.
What is it? Right.
Sure.
And it's in that story where that redemption happens, that healing happens. I don't know how it happens. I mean, obviously the atonement and grace of Jesus Christ is quite complicated, but it almost creates a space where it's like, I am being seen. Right.
Sure.
I interviewed one, his name leaves my mind at this point, but he talked about the dynamic of Adam and God, right? When Adam ate the fruit and hid, and then God came down and said, Adam, where are you? Like, that's such a powerful question of anybody suffering or going through a difficult time, whether it's their fault that they ate the fruit, or the cancer just found them, or the tragedy, popped up in their life.
Well, especially because Adam's
say, where
story,
are you?
Right.
Yeah.
Adam's story at the time was, God doesn't want to see me. Right.
Exactly.
There's this shame associated with, oh my gosh, he doesn't want me. And God's saying, dude, where are you? Of course I want you. Mm-hmm. And so we could talk about that for hours, just that little piece right there, because
right. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is connected to shame, which I believe is the adversary's most powerful tool, and which he uses the most often, is if he can convince us of a false identity, we often buy into it. And for someone to just say, just tell me your story, it just has this de-shaming, de-stigmatizing force to it that just removes it all and saying, wow, I feel this acceptance. If this person, if Matt can accept me, maybe Jesus can accept me. And so I'm going to start with being accepted by Matt.
Sure.
And then maybe Jesus will accept me. And what they find out is he's always accepted them, right? He's always there.
Well, yeah. Now, and honestly, as you talk about that, I remember going to a men's retreat. It was 3 or 4 years ago. It was the first time I'd been, and there was an exercise where we actively kind of shared our story, and the person said nothing until the very end. And they would just say, I hear you. And honestly, I bawled my eyes out. Why? Yeah. Because it was the first time I felt like I had really, really been listened to. First time anybody had wanted to hear my story without saying, oh, let me tell you about my story. It blew me away just how much that, I can't even describe it, I guess.
Yeah. These are so, these situations are tough at times, because we do want to shift in, like, oh, I got a brother's cousin's wife's uncle that he went through this too. And man, he went and saw this doctor, but people, like, they don't want the solution. They just want to be seen. Right. And so it really is, just saying, where are you? Like, tell me your story. Like, wow, I just want to sit here with you. I don't know what to say. Like that, even that's a powerful thing. I don't know what to say. Sure. I just want to be here with you. Like, game over. Like, they will love you forever.
That's awesome. And obviously there's a lot of validation. There's a lot of things that are all encompassed in that. But what comes to mind is there's no judgment. Mm-hmm. I'm not sitting there pointing at your tattoo going, oh my gosh, dude, why would you do that? Right. It's
Yeah.
like, and I've heard people say, I don't remember, I can't quote them, that all behavior makes sense in context, right? That if I had been through your journey, I probably had the exact same tattoo, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Your behavior makes sense in context. And I think that's what the story gives is, here's the context. Here's the path I've walked.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
powerful.
judgment. Yeah.
No judgment.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for, yeah. And I like the way you brought up that bearing one another's burdens is just being present. It's like, okay, we're going to walk this journey together.
Yeah.
I'm just here. It's not about me waving a magic wand, or I'm here with you.
Yeah. And, you know, going back to another part of this question is like, well, what about, you know, the moves, the service opportunities? I mean, yeah, those will come, right? But they are sort of empty without this foundation of like, you know, Matt's coming over to help me move, but I've had so many interactions where I've been seen by him. And this is so cool that he's helping me, right? Like, it's not, we sort of hope that, oh, if we help that less active or that new family move, then they'll see that we love them, and then they'll show up on Sundays. But it won't work. Like it, I mean, it's great, and sure we should serve, and they'll be appreciative, but it does not have the long-term capacity to draw them into the gospel, to be seen by the Savior more fully there.
Yeah. Thank you. So what would you say? And I've heard some of your podcasts address this, but what's the value of brotherhood? And I say that just knowing for myself, for the first 40 plus years of my life, I didn't think I needed brotherhood. I didn't need friends, partly because I felt like, you know, I'd had some friends that didn't, maybe weren't the kind of friends I wanted at the time. But, you know, I kind of, a few years ago was really isolated and lonely and depressed. And what do you see in your experience?
Yeah. You know, brotherhood is such an interesting experience for men, because you're right. It sort of fades away the older we get, you know, the new stages of life we go into. But if we go back to the beginning of when we were, you know, just hooligans running around the neighborhood as 7, 8, 9-year-old boys, like we all had a tribe. Sure. You know, we all, there's that, naturally we form a tribe. I see my 7-year-old going through this as well in the neighborhood we live in. But I mean, my tribe was John, it was Rob, it was Craig, BJ. Like on any given summer night at 10 o'clock, we were out doing something just a little off, and maybe that we wouldn't fully divulge to our family, right? But there was this healing nature of like, I've got a tribe of brothers. Maybe as a young boy, we don't know what to do with it, but It's like in our nature. It's like God inserted this into our DNA, and so naturally we did it as children. But then as we get older, you know, we go through these, you know, you go to college, we all went in separate directions at college, and so, but our heart is always longing for a tribe. And then you get married, and then you hear messages of like, you know, no failure at home can be compensated for, you know, whatever it is. And David O. McKay did not say that. He was quoting someone else. Anyways, I always take that opportunity because people think it's David O. McKay's quote. It's right. Not. But anyways, you know, and so we get hyper focused on the family, right? But we don't know. There's so many dynamics there. I mean, the whole, you know, husband-wife relationship, that's a podcast for another time, but we get hyper-focused there. We feel like what I need to do is go to the little league games, and, you know, I got to be home. I got to do that garden thing, build the garden boxes for my wife. And I got to do that. I got to be present, and we go to church and we hear that, like, you know, the family. And then we get teenagers, and it just magnifies all that, because now they're struggling with real problems. And we lose this part of our heart of, we actually need brotherhood. And there is a hole in all of our hearts as men that can only be filled with brotherhood. We often try and feel that by, you know, having a really good marriage, or maybe we, you know, we've been asked to serve in our church. And so we like try and prove to ourselves that our heart's whole by how good we do in these callings. But at the end of the day, like, our heart needs brotherhood. We need that moment in the woods where you think, I can't believe we're doing this. Like, I'm a 40-year-old. Why should I know? Like, this is your inner soul that is being healed by this brotherhood, by doing the hunting trips, the camping trips, the canoe trips, the fishing, and all these things. And there's so much shame to that. And that's, again, what people need to work out. But, you know, there's that I've got, my wife would never, no, you don't understand, Kurt. My wife would never let me do those things. Well, that's something that's got to be addressed. You got to push through that and say, if you want a whole man, I got to be out in that river at least once every 6 weeks. And I need to take Bill and Stan and we got to connect, with that experience, or we will constantly seeking something. And then you wonder, like, man, I keep getting drawn back to this porn, or like I'm working late nights and I sort of hate my marriage. And we wonder, like, where did I go wrong? Well, part of it, I'm not saying that's a whole problem, but part of it is you lost your brotherhood somewhere. You didn't create the space and the time to really connect with men. Like, oh, like Kurt, I go to elders quorum every other week. Yeah, that's not working for you. I promise you, and bless, I mean, I have all the respect in the world for elders quorum but our faith community, our church is going through a transition right now where we've gone from every week was elders quorum. Now it's every other week. And for my opinion is that's not enough.
Sure.
And nor is it the church's job for them to serve you brotherhood on a platter and say, here it is. You don't have to worry about it. There's more we need to be doing. And the once a year pizza party, the elders quorum is not it, right? You got to really say, what were you doing as a 7, 8, 9-year-old? Did you enjoy the fishing? Did you enjoy the hiking? Did you, what about the video game parties? I don't know, whatever you do, like, you need brotherhood or you'll rot inside.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I feel like I learned that the hard way. And I can't even remember the exact reference. There's a scripture, I think it's in Proverbs, that, as iron sharpens iron, so another man sharpens his brother, something like that. And I a lot of times I'll lament that, I think in modern society, we've lost what I would call the community. I can't just walk across the field and say, Kurt, hey, my cow's in the mire again. Can you please help me pull it out? And just have those opportunities to rub shoulders, and, you go this way and I go that way, and we never see each other except maybe once a week. And I put on my church face and, hey, everything's good. I'm glad it's good with you. See you in a week. And there's zero connection. In fact, a good friend of mine was an elders quorum president, and we were just talking about, getting activities. He's like, I can't, nobody will show up. They've got nothing to connect on. They've got nothing, no reason to come. I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, this is a gospel that was built on brotherhood, that we, march across the plains and baptize Indians and go over to England. And we've lost so much of that it's just hard to draw on it anymore, unless we go to, like you say, out and build it. Have to be intentional about it.
Yeah. And one shift I've done personally, and I'm just always experimenting with these things, is if you really sit down and look at your Sunday worship experience, a ton of tradition there with, good and bad, whatever, and I can't imagine a Sunday where I don't wake up and just go to church. It's just what I've always done. It's just in my nature. It's what I do. And now, why do I go to church? Now, obviously there's the doctrine answers. I, want to renew my covenants, take of the sacrament. That's like 10, 15 minutes, right? Like,
sure.
There's a whole other, 1.5 hours to go. So why do I go? Like, do I go for the awesome Sunday school lesson? Like, we got some pretty good Sunday school teachers in my ward, but I don't walk away like, whoa, that was like, I've got all sorts of notes and things to consider. And sacrament meeting, like, the talks are great. Yeah, I hear the announcements and great, and activities coming up. So I've sort of shifted. When I walk into church, I'm there for my mission. After I take the sacrament, my number one mission is community. And sure. I'm just, sitting down, I'm trying to sit down next to somebody different. And believe me, I'm an introvert. Like, I come home exhausted from church. Like, I just need to take a nap. Like, that was more than I wanted to do. But, and we're in a growing area. So they're about to split our ward. There's just new families moving in all the time. And I'm just trying to connect with people. Hey, what's your name? Like, hey, how's, one guy's a school principal. You're almost done with the school year. How's that going? Right. And I, I'm not the weirdo per se. Maybe I am, but I haven't heard rumor anyways. But I move into that Sunday worship experience of, yeah, sure, I'm here to renew some covenants and attend church, but I'm here to build community, because that is what will draw people back here. That's what will get them to stay a little longer in the pew and in the hard chair and elders quorum, so that maybe they'll have an experience with Jesus where they need that redemption. And I can't offer that redemption. That's not my job, but I can offer them community. And at the end of the day, I think that's primarily why people come. And I don't know if they always get the community that they're looking for, and they can easily stop coming. And online with this connected world, they can find community elsewhere pretty easy.
Sure.
And so we got to make sure we really hit the community angle as we attend church.
Totally agree. Thank you. So, two more questions for you. One is, what would you say is the vision of what you're creating? How would you describe that?
Yeah, that's something I'm sort of figuring out more currently, because I always sort of where we are currently is what I sort of envisioned, having this, this dynamic platform that could really create some cool content that people find valuable, and we're there. I think going forward, it is sort of this, and I don't know if I'll get too much into this, but I think a lot of lay members of the church don't realize the various dynamics happening outside of the church. Obviously, you have the church, the organization, run by priesthood keys and many departments and organizations, and they create handbooks and lesson manuals, and that's all great. But there's certain things that organization just can't do as quickly as other organizations.
Sure.
Right. Just because they're a large organization, it's harder to turn that, that ship as opposed to a little tugboat. And so there's these third-party organizations like Book of Mormon Central, there's FAIR, there's North Star. I could go on, and Leading Saints is in that group of people. And, they all have their focus, whether it's the Book of Mormon or apologetic content and church history or whatever it is. And so we just want to be a more and more valuable resource to our faith community in all things leadership. So if that, and you've probably been that bishop too, where that person walks in, you have a list of names of their appointments, and you don't know what they're going to come and drop on your desk, but you got to be ready. You don't say the wrong thing, or this could go really bad, right? Like that's the pressure you feel. And so if somebody, a discouraged bishop or elders quorum presidents walking out of elders quorum thinking, man, why can't nothing's happening? Maybe they can go and find a resource that'll spark some inspiration, and they can try something or hear what the other guy's doing. And so I think our long-term is, we want to create more and more forms of content. We're in this next year, we're getting into a lot of tours, retreats like you guys do. And the more we can offer these experiences that maybe aren't quote unquote church sanctioned, but still valuable, I think we can develop a deeper sense of Zion and community, and then move this forward. Like Christ said that the kingdom of God is in you. Like it's not necessarily some organization with departments and big buildings. Well, I mean, that's sort of necessary for our church, but the kingdom of God is in you. And so whether you're in that calling or in that organization that kind of influence, you can have influence. And so the more we can do, just come together and create experiences and perspectives and redemption offering, whatever it is, I think that's the better it is. So I've kind of dodged your question, but that's sort of the direction we're
No, I love it. And honestly, you kind of led into the last question I want to ask you, which is, because you talked about creating Zion. And my question is, when you envision Zion, what does that look like? And what's one of the major ingredients we lack or need to build or really need to develop and mature when we're going to really build Zion?
Yeah. I think Zion, as far as accomplishing Zion or building Zion, I think a lot of it rides on the concept of acceptance. I have this great quote. I have it on my wall here in my office by Carl Rogers. Says, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. And I almost tweaked that, like the curious paradox of when I realize Christ accepts me just as I am, then I want to change, right? Because we sort of have these weird debates and discussion of acceptance. Like, well, I don't want to accept the people too much because then they think I'm condoning it and then they won't want to change. Like, no. Like, this is the paradox. And we worship a God of paradox. When we feel accepted just as we are by a savior, then there's nothing else we want to do with change. But we have to take that step of acceptance. And, the first principle of the gospel is faith in Jesus Christ. Sure. But I think that the first principle of the first principle is we have faith in Jesus Christ, that he accepts us completely as we are. Even if we never change the rest of our life, he would love us just the same. And when I'm in that state, and when I'm in a community where I'm seen and heard and accepted just as I am, then there's nothing else I want to do.
Sure.
But change. And that design to me is becoming an exalted people through the principle of unyielding acceptance. And that's the magic of the gospel. Like Jesus Christ is not some Harry Potter figure with wizard powers that he just waves a wand and the leprosy goes away. No, the power is that unabounding feeling of acceptance that no matter what I was suffering from, this figure, this being just came to me and lifted me out of the trench. Like, let's spread that message throughout the community and learn how to do just the same.
I love that. That's beautiful. And in fact, it reminds me of an experience I had where I was at a men's retreat and we'd gone through this process where we got to share some, we call it a shame process. We got to share some of our, I'm ashamed of this, and when we finished that, we just kind of stood in a circle and we just kind of put our arms around each other. And that instantly the thought that came to mind was, this is Zion. I'm not judging you. You're not judging me. We all got our dirt, but just the love, the unity, and to your point, the acceptance, zero judgment. And I truly believe that as we love and accept others and help them see that they are loved and acceptable, then, then yeah, I can change. I can give up whatever it was because I was probably just doing that to get some attention and love, and maybe test you to see if you really love me and can you accept me the way I am. Okay, if you do, then I don't need to do that anymore.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Awesome. Kurt, it's been a privilege. I've loved every minute. Thanks for
having me on.
Yeah. Happy to chat with you and appreciate your time and wish you the very best as you continue to build your organization.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the One Heart Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe and check us out online at oneheartonelight.org.